Alright guys, it is finally here, and how long have we waited for this reel to come out? And of course the reel that I'm talking about is the Shimano SLX DC XT. And I believe this was the only new DC reel that was released at this year's Japanese fishing shows. And the great news about this reel is that it's not one of Shimano's super expensive DC reels like the ANTARES, the EXSENCE, the CONQUEST, or even the METANIUM. This reel is actually pretty affordable by DC standards. I did get this from Japan Lure Shop per usual, and here is the free gift that they gave me. It's a MEGABASS, what is that, Deep X 100 LBO. Pretty sick color too. Unfortunately, because I'm a bank fisherman, I can't really use these long billed deep diving crankbaits, but maybe one day. But a very nice free gift. But let's get to this reel because so many people have been waiting for it. Now the story behind this reel is that the right-handers were supposed to come out in May and the left-handers in June, but for some reason it got delayed, and the right-handers came out here at the end of October, and the left-handers should come out at the end of November. And is that all we get? No oil? We got paperwork. Wow, no oil. Is that something new at Shimano, or did they just forget and it got past quality control? But we'll just put all this paperwork back inside. It's not like I care about oil. I got plenty of Shimano oil. Let's check out this reel right here. Boom. Look at that thing. Oh yeah, super smooth. Gonna give this thing a few twirls for you guys so you can check it all out. What does that say? Malaysia. No big surprise. I love this paint job. It's got a very, very expensive looking paint job. Couple of blue highlights and accents. Check out that spool. But yeah, I'm gonna do my customary inspection. Shouldn't take too long, and some of you guys may know why, but yeah, I'll be right back. So I'm done with my inspection, and before we start the analysis, I just wanted to cover two things real quick. Now the first thing is that, as you can see by these other two reels I brought out on the table, right now, as of this video, there are a total of 3 different Shimano SLX DC reels available for sale. Of course, we got the new XT, and then we have the JDM SLX DC 70, and you can tell it's got a slightly different paint job, and it's got that modified spool. And then we have the best-selling USDM, or American market, SLX DC 150. Now, thankfully, Shimano didn't raise the price on the SLX DC 150 like it did with a lot of its other reels, so it remains one of the biggest performance bargains of all time. But I know a lot of you guys out there are going to see 3 different SLX DC reels, and you're going to be confused as to which one you want to buy. And I'm going to go ahead and clear that up for you right now. This reel and this reel, they are in an entirely different class than this reel right here. And what I mean by that is this reel is at least one step above either of those other two reels. So if you're looking for the best all-around SLX DC reel, this is going to be it. Now the next thing I wanted to clear up is going to be the color. Now when I first saw the, I guess, videos and pictures of this reel, I thought it was going to be the same color as the new Shimano ALDEBARAN BFS, which has a blue color to it. And as you can see by this comparison, it is not quite as blue as the ALDEBARAN. It does have a blue tint to it, blue highlights here and there, but it's more of a gray color than the ALDEBARAN. In fact, I think the ALDEBARAN should have been colored this color, but oh well. For those of you who are curious to the color comparison between these two reels, there we go. So when Shimano unveiled the SLX DC XT at this year's Japanese fishing shows, of course I took a look at the promotional videos and I went on Shimano's website and checked it out. And as soon as I saw it, I just laughed. And I thought to myself, what a lazy effort from Shimano. And that's because this new SLX DC XT is basically the same reel as the 2017 Scorpion DC. And this 2017 Scorpion DC is based off the 2013 or 14 CURADO I. So this platform is literally going on almost 10 years old. So if you look at the side plates, they're the same, right down to the placement of the brake dial, right down to this protrusion right here. If you look on the other side, you'll see the screw holes are the same. The molding of the side plate is the same. Even the handles are the same, right down to the ugly plastic nut retainer. That's the same. Now, of course, the knobs and knobbing caps are different, but I thought to myself, is Shimano really just repainting and rebadging the old Scorpion DC and trying to sell it to us as a new reel? And after inspecting both reels, the answer is mostly no, and I'm going to show you guys why. But first, I just want to say that being based off of this reel right here, the 17 Scorpion DC, is not a bad thing at all, because this is one of my favorite reels of all time. And even today in 2022, this reel can stand up to pretty much any reel out on the market today, performance-wise. And in fact, I get more emails about this reel from subscribers and viewers of my videos saying they bought it because of my videos on it and they love it more than any other reel I've done a video on. And true story, my cousin who lives down in Atlanta told me that he was fishing, I guess at a local pond, and he ran into a guy that had, I believe, a Scorpion DC. And this guy was a subscriber of mine. He said he bought one because of my video, which is kind of cool. So needless to say, the 2017 Scorpion DC is no slouch, and it's actually a great platform. But now it's time to show you guys what Shimano changed in this new 2022 SLX DC. Now, after comparing these two reels, I would say they're about 75% the same. Now, there are a few minor differences, but there also are a couple of major differences, which I'm going to show you guys here in a moment. But obviously, the biggest visual difference is going to be the color. They went with, I guess, a more classy bluish gray with the SLX, while the Scorpion was this sinister Darth Vader black. Another change is going to be the thumb bar. The Scorpion's got that nice, almost trademark wide flat thumb bar that gives you a lot of real estate for your thumb, while the SLX has a better looking chrome thumb bar, but it just doesn't feel quite as spacious as the Scorpion thumb bar, and it definitely doesn't provide as much grip. And in fact, it looks to be the same thumb bar as the 22 ALDEBARAN. Now, another change is going to be the knobs. Now, the XT's knobs are noticeably slimmer, as you can see. And of course that means the knob end cap is going to be different. Now from the top they look somewhat similar, but from the side the SLX definitely has slimmer, flatter knobs, which I prefer. Now next up, the drag stars are different. Scorpion's got the, I guess, more traditional Shimano swept design, while on the SLX you get a more traditional straight drag star design, and I actually prefer the drag star on the SLX. Both of them are kind of small, but I like the looks of the SLX drag star better. Of course both are aluminum and they both click, but no surprise, the spool tension on the SLX does not click. Now internally there are some differences that you can't see, the major one being that while both feature the X-Ship double bearing pinion support, the SLX XT actually has micro module gears. Now turning the handle, I don't really feel a difference between them other than the fact that, you know, this is a well-used 5-year-old reel, but it's still super smooth. It is a little bit looser, I guess, from a lot of use, but I don't think that you're really going to feel the micro module gears until you really get some resistance on the line, but even then it's kind of negligible. But in any case, the SLX XT does have micro gears. Now it's time to get to the two big changes. Now on Shimano Japan's website, they're kind of touting this reel as having finesse capabilities, being able to handle lures down to 3/16 of an ounce, or in metric that's 5 grams. And I believe that's due to the fact that they gave the SLXT the newer, smaller MGL3 spool design. If you take a look at the difference between the spools, you'll see there's a huge difference. The MGL3 spool of the SLX is significantly narrower. I think it's only like 19 millimeters wide, while on the Scorpion it's 25 millimeters wide, even though they modified it to hold less line, as you can see. But also the spool diameter on the SLX is smaller at 33 millimeters versus 34 for the Scorpion. And in fact, I think the only other DC reel that's sporting the MGL3 spool is the top of the line ANTARES, which cost over twice as much as this SLX. Now, because this spool is narrower, hopefully you guys can see, but they actually narrowed the reel because of it. I'm gonna swap places, but it is definitely a thinner reel going side to side. And you can really see it in the, I guess, handle side plate design if you inspect them really close. Now the height is the same, side plate surface area is the same, but when I mounted both of these reels on two of the same rods, the SLX definitely felt smaller and a little bit more comfortable. And in fact, the new SLX XT is bordering on being almost the same size as Shimano's CURADO 70 platform. Of course, on the side, the 70 is still gonna palm a little bit smaller because it's lower and the side plate doesn't have as much surface area, but from the top you can definitely see they're very similar in size. So yeah, Shimano really wasn't that lazy and just gave the old Scorpion a new paint job and a new name. They actually tooled out an entirely smaller frame for this SLX XT. So since this SLX is supposed to be capable of finesse duties, it's time to get a weight on that MGL3 spool. So of course, before we get a weight on the spool, we're going to get a weight on the reel, and we're also going to compare it to the weight of some current DC reels. Now the first reel is going to be the SLX DC 150. It's coming in at 7.68 ounces. So now we have the JDM SLX DC 70, and it's a little bit lighter at 7.58. Alright, so next is going to be the current METANIUM DC, and this is supposed to be the lightest DC reel currently available, and it clocks in at 6.88 ounces. So now we have the beautiful current model Scorpion DC, which came out, I think, last year. It feels hefty. And the scale says 7.85, so the heaviest reel yet. A full ounce heavier than the METANIUM. And then of course we're going to weigh the discontinued 2017 previous Scorpion DC. It's coming in at 7.6 ounces. Alright, I'm going to lay this off to the side. And picking up the SLX XT versus the Scorpion, they feel about the same. Well, maybe the SLX is a little bit lighter, but let's see what the scale says. Wow, okay. So it says 6.87, so according to the scale, this XT is almost a full ounce lighter than the old Scorpion DC. Now once again, when I pick them up, okay, well, I can definitely feel it now. And I'm thinking a lot of that is due to the fact that, of course, the frame has been made narrower, so it uses less aluminum material. And hopefully, a lot of that is due to the spool being lighter, but there's only one way to find out. Okay, so the spool scale's out. And to access the spool on the XT, you have to make sure that this dial is in the open position, lift this latch, and the side plate comes straight out, exactly like the 17 Scorpion DC. Alright, now let's pull this spool out and we'll take a look at it real quick. Typical Shimano design, long spool shaft made of steel. You see there's a slight concave to it. There's the MGL 3 badging on the other side as well. There's no bearing. There's no silent tune O-rings. No porting in the center. So really the only holes are these 4 holes on the opposite sides. And I wonder why Shimano did that. There's the electromagnet for the DC braking system, which we'll go over here in a moment. But I don't know, it feels pretty average in weight to me. Now of course I pulled the spools out of those other DC reels for comparison, plus I have a special treat to show you guys. Now this spool, since the XT is supposed to be capable of finesse, is smaller and narrower. Now compared to the 2017 Scorpion spool, you can see it is much narrower, and hopefully you guys can see that it is slightly smaller in diameter as well. It's supposed to be 33 millimeters and this is 34. And just in case you're wondering, the spool of the old Scorpion DC will not fit. Because it is 1 millimeter taller and much wider. Now despite supposedly being able to do finesse, the spool looks kind of deep to me, but by Shimano standards this is a 70 line capacity spool. So alright, let's get to weighing. Now we're going to start off with the American market SLX DC 150. And this thing comes in at a whopping 20.75 grams. And you can feel it. Next up is going to be the JDM DC 70 SLX spool. Wow, it's even heavier at 21.27 grams. Alright, so next up is the current Scorpion DC that has the previous MGL designation spool. As you can see, the porting. And this spool comes in at 17.96, so pretty much 18 grams for the current Scorpion DC spool. Alright, so next up is the current METANIUM DC spool, and this reel was capable of finesse as well, at least they said, and it comes in at 17.2 grams on the nose, so the lightest spool here by far. Alright, so we got your 2017 Scorpion spool, 17.83. So it's lighter than all these spools except for the much more expensive METANIUM, as it should be, because Shimano does things right, meaning they're going to put their lighter, higher performing spools in their more expensive models. Alright, moment of truth. The SLX XT spool. Okay, wow. It comes in at 16.89, so pretty much 16.9 grams. Let's weigh that again. Yep, 16.89. So it's almost a full gram lighter than the 17 Scorpion spool, and it's actually lighter than the much more expensive METANIUM spool. So that tells me that we're pretty much guaranteed to see a new METANIUM DC come out next year with probably an even lighter spool than this. But yeah, 16.9 grams for a DC spool is very light, but by today's standards, actually pretty heavy when you compare it to all the other spools out there. But check this out. Now, even though the XT is supposed to be able to do finesse, there's really only been one true bait finesse DC reel, and can you guess what I have in this bubble wrap? Let you guys take a closer look. But this is the spool of the long discontinued, ultra rare, ultra expensive Shimano Cardiff 50 DC. Check out how shallow that thing is. Super shallow. No portholes, at least on the outside. A bunch of portholes in the center. There's your DC mechanism. But let's weigh this spool. 16.35, so much lighter than even the current SLX XT spool. And let's do a comparison in size. Well, yeah, you can definitely see that it is much smaller in diameter. I think this is probably like 30 millimeters, but the line capacity, there's no comparison. And if you're wondering why do I have a Cardiff 50 DC spool when I don't have a Cardiff 50 DC, well, a few years ago I decided I wanted to get the Cardiff 50 DC, but it had been long discontinued. So what I did instead was I purchased the CONQUEST 50 DC, which uses the same frame and body, and I also purchased Cardiff spool thinking it would be a direct swap, so I would pretty much make my own DC BFS reel. But unfortunately Shimano foiled my plans because the spool on the CONQUEST is a different dimension, I think in diameter as well as the length of the spool shaft, than the Cardiff. So this spool didn't fit. So I spent all that money importing the reel and this spool only to be foiled by Shimano. I should have known better. Okay, so now it's time to explain what makes the SLX DC XT so special along with all the other Shimano DC reels, and that of course is going to be its DC braking system. Now DC stands for digital control, and basically what it is underneath all this there is a computer chip or a circuit that monitors the spool speed, and when it senses, I guess, an overrun or the lure stalling in the air, it applies, I guess, electricity to this electromagnet to slow the spool down, but it does it only when necessary. And it monitors the spool speed like every 1,000th of a second or something like that, and there's supposed to be some kind of a optical eye somewhere in here that does the monitoring. And for all you newbies out there who are unfamiliar with DC braking, you're probably wondering, well, how do you power this digital chip or this digital circuit? Does it require batteries or charging or anything like that? And the answer is actually no. Every time you make a cast, it recharges the DC braking system. So it's a very ingenious system by Shimano, and there's nothing from any other company, not Abu Garcia, not LEWS, not DAIWA, that can come close to the advanced technology of these Shimano DC brakes. Now the one downside to DC brakes is that, as you see, it makes the spools very heavy, but since the DC system only comes on when necessary, Shimano DC reels can usually outcast pretty much all other reels out on the market when it comes to actual fishing lures in regular fishing conditions, because I think it allows the spool to keep up its speed longer than a traditional magnetic or even centrifugal system. And when it comes to casting into the wind, DC reels can't be touched. So that's just a short explanation of what DC reels are and why they are so coveted and sought out by anglers. And the great thing is, Shimano in recent years has made this technology affordable to pretty much almost everybody, with a slew of lower priced DC models like the CURADO and the SLX and the Scorpion. Now Shimano has, I think, about 3 or 4 different versions of DC brakes out on the market right now, and the SLX XT is sporting the IDC5. Now this IDC5 brake system is what makes the XT a level above the other SLX DC reels, which are sporting the lower end IDC4. So that gives this XT far more adjustable brake settings than any of the reels that have the IDC4 system. And let me show you how it works real quick. Now internally you see that there are letters on the brake unit, P, N, and F. Now P stands for polyethylene or braided line, N stands for nylon or monofilament, and of course F stands for fluorocarbon. So what you do is, depending on what line you have on or what line mode you want to use, there's this arrow on top that's pointing to one of these line modes. And if you want to go from one line mode to the other, you just got to take your fingernail and move it. So now we're on nylon, and if we want to go to braid, you just slide it over, and thankfully there's like a little hump in between these letters that keep the arrow where it's supposed to be. Now once you have your line mode picked out, you have this external dial which has numbers. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and wind. So obviously wind gives you the strongest amount of brakes for casting into strong headwinds or for skipping. Number 4 is a little bit less brakes, 3 is a little bit less, 2 is a little bit less, and then 1 is the lowest amount of brakes you can get. Now I'm going to go into more detail and demonstrate these brakes when I do the on the water casting video for this reel, but that's what DC brakes are in a nutshell for you new people who are watching this video. So to finish off this video, let's talk about a couple of things. Now the first thing is, what are my first initial impressions of this SLX DC XT? And was it worth the extra 5-month wait? Now I have to admit, Shimano wasn't quite as lazy as I accused them of being, because not only did they take my favorite DC platform, they actually improved it, made it smaller, lighter, and even more comfortable to palm. And of course they fitted in some of their current technology like the micro gears, the MGL3 spool, which is significantly lighter than the previous spool, and let's hope that it performs as good as it looks, because they really topped this reel off with a really expensive looking, just a rich paint scheme, and combine it with, you know, the chrome on the thumb bar, the silver colored trim pieces. This thing looks really good, and I already like it better than my Scorpion 2017 model. And to me so far, yes, it's been worth the extra 5-month wait, because there are several other very capable DC reels you could have bought instead of this reel, like the current Scorpion DC. But that reel is much heavier, the spool is heavier, it doesn't palm as nice, and yeah, just something about this platform, even though it's really old, it's just stood the test of time. Now, let's talk about the price. How much does this reel cost? With the current exchange rate as of today, to my door, this reel was just under $200. So an incredible bargain, but just keep in mind, these JDM prices do change with the exchange rate. And right now the exchange rate is very favorable for the American dollar. So in a month or two, things could change and the price on this reel could go up, who knows. Now if you want to know where you can buy this reel and find the best deal for it, I'm going to leave a link in the description to a video I made called How to Buy JDM Tackle version 2.0, and watch that video on how to shop around for the best prices if you're looking for a piece of JDM equipment. Now the next thing, of course, is we're going to mount this reel on a rod, string it up with some line, and we're going to do some casting tests on the first sunny day available that I'm off. But yeah, I'm very excited to test out this, I guess, lightweight spooled DC reel that's got the fast spinning MGL3 spool, and hopefully it won't disappoint. Alright guys, thanks a lot.